We are the Sanlis Group, and right now we are here with Mr. Joel Fernando. He's the Vice President of the Magsaysay Corporation, and he'll be the one to accommodate us and to answer our questions regarding the processes and the existing problems that they have in the company. Like recruitment?
Yeah.
So,
right? Good. So, where do you want me to start? You want me to start with the background of the organization, right? Okay. Okay. Magsaysay Maritime Corporation deploys about 2,000 seafarers every month. We fill about 38,000 positions for different companies worldwide. So at any given time, we have 38,000 people deployed outside. Now, because of that, we have a recruitment. Our recruitment is constant. We receive about 1,700 to 2,000 applications every month. No? And these applications can come either through our web portal, yung magsaysaycareers.com. It can be hand-carried. Submit, this is my CV. Or it could be submitted as a soft copy via email. Okay. Now, because the challenge that we have is that, number one, we have to be able to match the qualifications of the applicants to the minimum hiring standards of the client. So if a candidate submits a CV, we should be able to extract the information and put it into a system that can classify it and sort it out. Now, normally, when you entertain about 20 or 30 applications a month, madali i-classify yun. Ilatag mo lang dyan yung 30 applications mo and then, okay, this one doesn't match. Ganun siya. But when you're talking about 1,700 to 2,000 applications a month, it becomes a challenge. Now, it would be easier if everyone would just go through the web and encode their personal details on the web. But practically, that is not what's happening. That's not feasible. That's not what's happening. Because we recruit for positions anywhere between a top management position to the lowest level, like stewards, cleaners. Doon kami nagre-recruit. There's that portion at the top who is not willing to encode their CVs kasi bossing na sila. And there's that portion below who just can't encode it properly. No? So there is that huge portion na talaga who prefers to submit their CVs or to send it to you by email. Now, so now you have this soft copy of the CV in PDF format, in Word format, in RTF format, in whatever kind of format that they think of. You have the CV that is printed out in a bond paper. Sometimes it's A4, sometimes it's a long piece of bond paper, sometimes it's, iba-iba rin. Plus, of course, you have the people who encode it together. Now, the challenge is to extract all the data from these different sources and put it in a database. So that's one. Right now, what's happening is we are the ones that do not go through the website are encoded manually. It takes about 25 minutes for the encoder to encode one CV. So go figure kung gano'ng karami na yung backlog. No?
Sir,
yeah.
And how many encoders do you have?
Right now we have 5. So you can imagine how much backlog we have already of the CVs that are under the tables in the office. It's just not just a matter of encoding. It's also structuring the data. Because when you start talking about minimum hiring standards in a recruitment company, you talk about years of experience in a position. In a particular position. If I'm hiring you, for example, as a programmer, I'm going to hire you as, I'm going to hire you as a programmer. Okay? What typically should I be looking at? if I have a system that operates on SQL, that's on an SQL database, and that is being driven by a software system that's on C++, I should be looking at a programmer who has had SQL experience and a C++ programming background, right? Baka pwede ko pang lagyan, kailangan marunong siya mag.NET. Kung web developer siya, kailangan may basic siya. Kailangan may HTML siya, may Java siya, right? How do you extract that from a resume? If that is the minimum requirement of the client, and I have 200 resumes submitted to me, for me to be able to see that, I have to look at it one by one. I don't have that. I mean, that kind of a process is necessary, but I need to find a way to be able to automate it. If I don't automate it, I'm going to, like right now, our recruitment department is composed of 16 people. 16 people. Pero technically, even we have more because of the process. What happens is an application comes in, no? We have a team that looks at the application and matches it to a specific requirement, no? We match it to a specific requirement. Once we see that they are qualified, on paper, we invite them over for an interview. Okay? Now, the interviewer now looks at the qualifications and looks at the paper and then tries to verify what is stated in the CV. I mean, if you tell me that you speak English really well in your paper, I'm not going to take your word for it. I'm going to ask you questions, right? Just to see for me to be able to assess. If you tell me that you are a programmer, that you know Java, I have a list of questions here for Java programmers. And I'm going to ask you several questions just to verify that what you're saying is correct. Now, on that interview, I would have to list down my assessment of your qualifications, of your English communication skills, of your personality. Are you very bubbly? Are you the type of person who speaks a lot, or who speaks sermon, or are you someone who is shy and cannot really, doesn't really want to talk unless you pull it out of him? I have to write that down because I will pass on that information to another person who's going to interview on the technical side. And then that information, that interview will also have to be recorded before I pass it on to the client for his final review. So the information that starts on the CV is now added. There are other information that are added to it on the first step. Like I mentioned a while ago, if I'm looking for a barista, okay, and you tell me that you know how to make a cappuccino, the first thing I will do is I will ask you, how do you make a cappuccino? Okay, so you're going to say, you start off with espresso. Actually, it's already a step. You start off by heating milk, then you put espresso, then you put foam, then you put cinnamon powder. That's perfect cappuccino, supposedly, right? So you know how to make a cappuccino. So the next thing that I will do is I will send you in front of an espresso machine, make me a cappuccino. Then you are going to have to demonstrate that you know how to make a cappuccino. And then I'm going to grade you. So that record is also put on your CV, on that information. So that by the time it gets to the client knows, he's been tested in making a cappuccino, he knows a cappuccino. So that information is added on until it reaches the client. Okay? Now, that process may be a little bit, if you look at it intuitively, the process is very simple. It's not so difficult. It's not so difficult if you're talking about one position and maybe about 30 candidates or 40 candidates for that position. But the moment you start talking about 200 to 300 different positions with different hiring standards, with different requirements, no? With different clients going to different places out of the Philippines, Some will go to Europe, some will go to Middle East, some will go to Canada, some will go to US. I mean, the moment you start talking about those, in about 2,000 applications a month, suddenly it becomes complicated. Suddenly it becomes complicated. So like what I said, right now, just the encoding part of the resume takes an encoder about 25 minutes to encode the resume. I don't even know if our data structure is correct. Don't tell our IT that. We already find enough. I don't even know if the data structure is correct. But then, good. So that's the problem that we have. It's just that the volume makes us inefficient. Makes us inefficient. I'm gonna check. Now imagine if I get another 2 clients with another 200 positions that are needed. So suddenly the 38,000 becomes another 38,400 to be another. So palaki lang siya ng palaki. Now if we start looking at the fail rates, the work back rates, no? If I have to fill one position, if I work back on the different stages of screening, the principal screening, typically the fail rate is 15%. 15% ang, no sorry, let's work back from the start. If I interview 1,000 candidates, 65% of them will fail on the first meeting. They will be dropped already. They won't qualify for that position. For one position, it doesn't mean that they don't qualify for another. So kailangan tumipat ulit sila ron sa, they start from scratch again on that position. So for one position, I interview 1,000 candidates, 650 will fail. So I have 350 left. Out of that 350, maybe another 80% or maybe another 20% is going to fail again. It's going to fail again. So that's another 70. Tapos, ang acceptance rate sa dulo is only 15%. So out of the 1,000 candidates, we're only able to accept 150. So in order for me to get 150 candidates, which is 15%, I have to interview 1,000 people at a time. Now, if I'm filling 38,000 positions, at any given time, sabihin na natin in any month I will have to replace 3,800, 10%. Okay? How many people will I have to interview or screen? Ganun siya. That's the problem. It's just the size, the volume of people. Plus another thing, we don't only source in the Philippines. We source in Indonesia, in China, and in Eastern Europe. Ayun pa. So that's another problem.
So do you have the same approach with the other countries?
Yes.
With their handling the CVs?
Yes.
So it's a standard.
Standard.
So how do you get the people?
We have several offices in different countries, smaller than here, because the biggest portion pa rin of the recruitment is Philippines. Although, if we look at the total pool, about 70% is from the Philippines, 15% is from Indonesia, maybe another 5 or maybe another 10% is from China, maybe another, the rest will be from Eastern